Hello, everyone, and welcome to the newly christened Summer 2013 Case Closed Review. My name is Alan, otherwise known as Hisui.
And I'm Kate, otherwise known as Narataki. These Case Closed reviews will be sort of piggybacking on our S.W.A.T reviews that we do at the beginning of the season, and we're going to be doing Case Closed reviews at the end of the season for series that we watched all the way through.
So, they're not shows that got post-mortemed or shows that we just gave up on but didn't feel like post-morteming. These are series that, for one reason or another, we got through the whole season and kind of give you what we thought of it and if it was worth watching.
And again, in this sort of quick, short format. So, this time, in our first one, is going to be Silver Spoon from A1 Pictures, which is streaming on Crunchyroll. And you're going to want to go and watch it on Crunchyroll because I have only good things to say about this show. It was the surprise of the season for me because leading up to it, I had heard about it, and it's about this agricultural school, and I was sort of on the brink of snore, this sounds really boring, and I wasn't really expecting to like it, but then I ended up loving it because it has really great personalities. I really liked Hachkin, just kind of struggling with running away from his problems, but learning to love the farm life. I thought that was really well created.
And him I know some people have criticized that it kind of has, I'm a city slicker and a new thing and everything's wacky to me. I think that it had him be a changing element in a interesting way. Because a lot of times the city slicker learns from the country folk story. It's only the city slicker who's changed. Whereas I think there's a good mix of people kind of getting a new perspective on how they live in this kind of farm life from somebody who's outside of the system, and him kind of getting in equal measure. There's a good give and take in that regard.
Yeah, he's not just the straight man to crazy in a comedy way. You nailed it, Al, because the end of the series kind of brings that all together, because throughout they're sort of dealing with different aspects of farm life, but near the end they get to the really hard part, which is animals and the death of animals and sort of animals becoming food for humans and how difficult that is. But all of the characters besides Hachkin talk about how they've sort of gotten so used to it because that's how they've grown up. And not that they don't care or anything, but they understand the process of it. But Hachkin makes them reassess that detachment they have to the animals, and that's not necessarily better or worse. And so, yeah, there is a lot of duality between Hachkin not really doing things the way they do it, but not necessarily doing things completely wrong, just having a different approach. That makes it sound so serious, though, because, it has a very emotional element to it, but it presents itself in such a way that is really lighthearted and fun at all the time, I think. This series doesn't really have any, darkness, which is fine. It's good. It doesn't need it, but
because I think, once again, a lot of people were at least peripherally interested because the series is by Hiromu Arakawa, who everybody knows as the lady who drew the original Fullmetal Alchemist manga, and this is very different. It shows at the core that while Fullmetal Alchemist had some interesting political and ethical decisions
and action, a lot of action, obviously,
that the core of her good storytelling was not just, I can tell an action story, it was kind of good characters and good plotting. And I think that the fact that she could make pretty much a comedy manga that has no action in it, really an interesting series, and then A1 Pictures could adapt that well, shows that she has a lot of versatility as an artist.
Yes, because it doesn't come off as a slice of life series. I think that it could in moments, but it doesn't have that. It has a lot of progression. We're moving through the school year. People are deciding upon their future paths. And things change over the course of the series quite a bit. So that's definitely
because there's the initial mystery of why did this kid who pretty much was getting straight A's in a city school and seemed to have this path towards, being like a lawyer or a doctor or something like that, just suddenly, out of nowhere, go to an agricultural college. And, what prompted that? And that's kind of a mystery through some of the series. And then...
And we solve that.
Yeah.
It's not as if he's over it or the audience knows everything about it, but we have a better understanding of the basic reason why he left home. And I am excited, and I hope to see more, because right at the end, we finally get to see his parents. And his dad is like the most, he has such a scowling face. It's just so like, oh, I would run away too because he looks like he's mad at everything all the time. And he's mad at like everyone he knows, and his job, and the house that he lives in, and nature, and everything.
I was about to say, the guy says like 2 lines at the end of that episode too.
And well, there's like also that one time when he's on the phone or whatever, so we have an idea of his personality. And we also get to meet Hachkin's brother, who is a very interesting contrast to Hachkin, and also... A lot of times in series, I feel like the sibling is either somebody they look up to, or they're super perfect and better than, or they're the opposite. But I actually think Hachkin's brother is a lot like him, except he's more like laid back and lackadaisical. But the core like reasons he's doing things, I think, are very much in line with what Hachkin is feeling about his home life.
They've both obviously been affected by the same family environment, and so it's kind of shaped them a lot of ways the same way, but in a lot of ways they're an interesting contrast of people who have had the same circumstances but kind of gone in different directions.
But at the same time, they've kind of come to the same place.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't feel as though his brother is there to just be a contrast to Hachkin, because I don't think that he's a total contrast.
Yeah.
I think on the surface he seems to be, but the core of that I think is going to end up being very similar, which I think will be interesting to be explored. But then there's like all the rest of the cast that's really good that we haven't even got to talk about yet. It's a really cast-based series, and I like that. I like that I want to know about everybody, that everybody has these little moments where we learn different things about them. I really think that an ensemble cast is something that's really hard to pull off without overshadowing your main character and, being like, well, yeah, I guess whatever main character, but who are all these other cool people? I don't think that it does that. I care about Hachkin. I want to know what's happening with him, but everybody else is really awesome. I mean, granted, I would watch the Tamako show. Like, fine. She is amazing. And she is such a rare character in anime, I think, because she is a bigger woman and a teenager, and for the most part, they don't poke fun at that. There are, like, it's almost like anime can't even freaking help itself, that they have to make a comment now and then, but in large part, it's not there, which is really nice. And she's not a comedy character that's just supposed to be like...
Well, she's no more a comedy character than anybody else in the comedy show.
Right. I just mean that her weight is not there to just be some sort of, like, comedic element.
If anything, they focus more on her businesswomaniness as her comedy shtick.
And that's refreshing. I think that that's really nice to see. And she's so interesting. She's cool. I really want to know more about her. Kumaba, like, his goals to be a professional baseball star, and kind of contrasting that with everybody else in the series. One of the things that I like about all the ancillary characters is that they all have goals, and that is one of the things that Hachkin really feels like he's missing.
Even though he's kind of a minor character, Aikawa was interesting. He's the vet who, he really wants to help animals, and, he has a... like a noble kind of wanting to doctor these creatures, but on the other hand, he knows that he has a fear of blood and death. He knows that in the course of his work, he's going to have to put down animals and slice them up. And a lot of times, we don't have the niceties or possibly, of just keeping people alive like we do animals. If they're just too sick, boom, a person that we try to keep alive, an animal you just have to put down. And he kind of has to struggle with that, and that's kind of interesting. You've not even like a B story, a C story, but it's always kind of there, and you always kind of see his progress going on. So there are a lot of characters who have kind of little stories that you constantly check in on.
He was actually one of the characters, though, that I felt like really progressed within the 11 episodes, because Hachiken is dealing with a similar issue as he is, and even though Aikawa, he's like a minor character, he mentions, at the end, I learned that vets also do work at slaughterhouses and things like that. So he's kind of in his next phase as well by the end of the series. And Kumaba is also kind of at the next phase because we see that baseball game, whereas some other characters haven't moved on to that next phase yet. And I guess in a way, even though this is a case closed, it's still a case open because there's going to be another season in the winter. Which I'm really happy about.
Well, let's see, but this is still valuable because you can, if you were, I don't want to watch series till they're over, you now know that, this was a good series. I should watch this before the second season starts and get in on that.
Catch up and then watch.
Although, we were a little worried with the end of the series because it seemed like 10th episode was like, wow, that was a great ending. It's the 11th ending going to be, the main character runs around and chases chickens, and then it's like, wop, 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 read the manga. I don't know why we ended on that.
But luckily, we did not end up there. It was a little bit of a side story, but it wraps up a lot of stuff from episode 10. It kind of puts a little bow on them. It could have definitely ended with episode 10, but 11 doesn't seem extraneous.
It does seem a little epilogue-y as opposed to conclusion-y.
That's a good way to put it. But I didn't feel like that it ruined anything from the effect of the ending of 10. Highly recommended, if that wasn't obvious.
All right, so we call it. This case was closed successfully.
Yes!
たまには手紙を書いてみるよどっかにポストカードでもあったっけ懐かしい顔に向けてほんの数秒のスタルジーをチューチュルチューチューチューチューチュルチュー調子はどうですかチュルチュルチュチュチュチュチュルチュ忙しくしていますか無我夢中で探し回ってたあの夢の具合はどんなのだ気分転換くらいのノリで一緒に歌わないかいそして夢中で探し回ってたあの夢の続きを語り合おう明日を頑張るぜ今そこにある未来へ駆け出して最高